All right, first step is going to be setting up the radio. We're going to go into the system list. We're going to go to Xbus. We're going to set it to Xbus mode A. Then we can go back. Next, we're going to set the wing type to flaperon for dual aileron setup. And next, we can go ahead and bind the receivers. All right, so on this setup, we are running the odd and even receivers. We are also doing the 12-volt SHV setup. So for these receivers, we have to run the SHV plugs to be able to handle the higher current. As far as the modes go, these do PWM 16 channel or Xbus for all of them as well. So the way you tell which mode you're on is if you have solid green light inside the receiver when you bind it, you're in Xbus mode. To change the mode, you grab a bind plug and put it into the mode port of the receiver and rebind. All right, so for the actual binding of the receiver, we're going to be in system list. Go to bind and range, press. Next, we're going to press bind. So you bind one receiver at a time. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll press bind, turn on a receiver. And successful, it's bound. So that was one side of the plane. Next, we're going to do the other side. So we'll go ahead and turn off the receiver. Press bind one more time, and we'll turn the other receiver back on. Success. So both receivers are now bound. And as you can see, both lights are on inside, meaning that we are on Xbus mode. Now that we have both receivers bound, we can go ahead and set up all the Xbus settings in the servos. So we're going to go into system list one more time, scroll all the way over to Xbus, press it, then we're going to go into servo and connector, press that. We're going to set the ID to 01 for both. So on these, you have the layout. All the Xbus servos come stock with throttle as the Xbus output, so we have to select that to be able to change it. So we're going to select throttle 01, and then we can select what we change that servo to. So we're going to do the left aileron first. So we're going to do left aileron 01, left aileron 01. So we're going to change the inboard from throttle to aileron. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys that. So for Xbus, you have to do one servo at a time. So right now everything is disconnected. So we'll hook up one servo and then we'll be able to set it up. So I'll go ahead and hook up the inboard aileron. The nice thing about Xbus is that all these ports have the same Xbus output, so you can plug it in anywhere and it won't change the settings. So as you can see right now, I have the inboard connected and it is moving on throttle. So since we already have that set up, I can go ahead and press set, and now we have it set up as aileron. Hold on, what is it? We'll do that part one more time. All right, now that we have both receivers bound, we can go ahead and do the Xbus setup on the servos. So stock, all the servos come set as throttle 01 for Xbus out. So we have to go get ahead and change that. So the way to do that is go into system list, go into Xbus, servo and connector. So we're going to go ahead and set the main ID that we are changing. We have to set that to throttle 01 since that's what our servo is going to be at. And then we can change it to whichever channel we want. So we're going to go ahead and do the inboard servo on the left wing. So we're going to set left aileron 01. Now that you have that set, you can go ahead and hook up the servo. So we'll go ahead and hook up the inboard aileron. All right, so as you can see, the aileron is on throttle at the moment. So we'll go ahead and set on the ID change. And now we set that servo to be left aileron. So we're gonna go ahead and do the outboard servo now. So we're gonna go back. Since that servo is also gonna be throttle 01, set it to throttle 01 again. And then we're gonna make it so that it is left aileron 2. So we can adjust both servos individually, but still be one main channel when you do travel adjust and sub trim in the normal settings. So we'll go ahead and plug the outboard servo. All right. So outboard servo is currently disconnected right now, so it doesn't bind. But we'll go ahead and hit set. And now both servos are working on the left aileron. All right, now that we have both servos assigned to the wing, we can go ahead and adjust them. So I'm gonna adjust the inboard servo first. So we're gonna go back to the main ID. We're gonna be left aileron 1, since that's what we set as the inboard. And I'm gonna adjust the sub trim until it is centered on the wing. So we'll go ahead and go over. So as you can see, now we have it flush. So we'll go ahead and hit save, set to save the setting. Now that that is done, we can go ahead and do the sub trim on the inboard. So there's a couple different ways to do this, but this is the way that I found it easiest. So we'll use the ball link and we'll put it on the surface and line it up with the hole to make sure that it is not binding. So to do the outboard, we go to main ID, channel 2, since that's what we have that on. Then we go and adjust the neutral until it is completely centered. All right, so as you can see, now the hole lines up with the surface. We'll go ahead and hit save. Ready? All right, so we'll go ahead and hit set. So that saved the sub trim on that. Next, I'm gonna match the endpoints. So we have travel. You can do fine adjustments. So you can do up to 10 clicks or just 1 click to really fine tune it. So we'll go ahead and do 10 since we have to get it in the ballpark first. So we'll fully deflect it and make sure that the ball link is through the hole. So I had to remove a little bit, but not as much as 10. So I'll go ahead and go to 2 and just keep going until it lines up with the hole. There you go. So now we got one side of the travel done. Hit set to save that setting. Now we'll do the other endpoint. So we'll go down. All right, so that lines up. Next, we'll go ahead and hit set. And now our wings are set up. Now that we have the wing completely set up, we can go ahead and set out the rate to be the same up and down. So we're gonna go ahead and use the measurement on our app. If you have a throw meter, that works as well. So on the radio, we're gonna go back to the main menu. We're gonna go to travel adjust. And then we can go to left aileron. Since both of the servos are ganged together, it's almost like using a matchbox. So we will be able to adjust both servos with just one channel. So I'll go ahead and show you guys that. We'll go ahead and zero this since we know the surface is centered. So we got 0. Next, we can slowly move the aileron over to get the throw. So right now we have 28 degrees. Say we want to go to 32, we'll just increase the travel on that channel until we get to 32. A little bit more. So we got 32 up. And then we'll go ahead and do the throw on the bottom as well. So go to the other side. Right now we still have 28. So I'll go ahead and increase it. And now we have 32. So it makes adjusting your travel and differential a lot easier later on down the road, having both of the servos gang together. All right, next we're gonna set up the tail. So we have to assign the channels as we did the ailerons. So we'll go into system list, Xbus, servo and connector. Since it's another new servo, we're gonna go ahead and set that to throttle 01, and then we can plug in a servo and figure out which one it is. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in another one. Okay, so next we can go to the tail and we can move the stick. So we can see that right now that is the rudder. So I'll go ahead and set that ID change to rudder 01. Hit set. And now we have the rudder assigned. Next we can follow up and do the elevators in the same process. So we'll go ahead and do those. I'll plug in the next lead that I have. The nice thing about Xbus is that you can plug them in anywhere and it's going to be the same channel out. So you can plug them into anywhere on the receiver and it'll be the same result. So now that we have that in, we can move the stick and see what that is. So that's going to be one of the elevators. So go to the main ID, throttle 01, ID change. We're going to set that to elevator 01, hit set, and now our elevator is assigned. We can do the last one. Go ahead and plug it in. We'll check it. So as you can see, elevator is working on the throttle, same as before. Throttle 01, ID change. We're going to go ahead and do left elevator 01, hit set, success, and now we have the whole plane set up on Xbus. Okay, next I'm going to show you guys how to reset a Xbus servo if you don't know which channel you have it assigned to, or if you just want to go back to stock settings from the factory. It is very easy to do. So right now, as you can see, for example, when I move the aileron, the throttle servo is moving with it. So we can go ahead and reset that since we don't know which channel of the aileron that is on. We can go to ID change. It'll go to ID reset. Next you scroll over. The one thing with this is that whatever Xbus servo you have plugged in, it will be completely reset to factory. So make sure you only have plugged in whatever you want to reset. So as you can see, I unplugged all the other servos that I had hooked up to that receiver. So receiver's on and only the throttle is hooked up at the moment. So we'll go ahead and hit set. And then, so you can see, now it reset and the throttle servo is moving on the throttle again. So that is throttle 01. And that is how you reset Xbus servos. All right, so next we're going to go through some of the basic performance-oriented Xbus settings. So I'm going to show you in this step right here. So we'll have left elevator 01 selected since that's what we want. And then we'll scroll over to the other page. And then we'll come into the holding, dumping, deadband, and boost. So holding, it makes the servo try a little bit harder to hold whatever input you are giving it. So it'll almost feel it as if it has a little bit more torque, but it'll also feel it a little bit more mechanic and not as soft. So all these settings you can fine tune to your liking. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the holding. So right now it has plus 38 and on dumping we have minus 50. But as you can see right now, whenever we give it input and let go, the elevator is really jumping. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So usually that means that you want a little bit too far on the settings. So we're going to go ahead and zero this one out and see how that goes. So as you can see, it's a lot softer now. But say you want it a little bit more aggressive, we can also mess with the dumping. So the dumping is going to deal more with in the center feel, where holding is going to be more on the end of the travel of the radio. So we're going to go ahead and increase the dumping, which will make it feel a little bit softer. Hit set. So as you can see, I made the servo a lot more linear and softer. So all these settings, they're going to come down to personal preference. Every servo is going to perform differently depending on the length of the servo that you have, length of the servo arm that you have, and which plane you have it, as well as the linkage setup. So there's not one perfect number for every servo, but that's the nice thing about the JR Xbus, is that you can run them and pretty much fine tune it to be exactly perfect for every plane that you have.